Richie, the developer of Howler 9.0. Somebody asked recently how we created this cityscape using our new ray tracer, and I'm just going to briefly describe how we did that. We started more or less with a procedural texture, which is the dread plating texture. This is sort of a reference to the dread hole texture that was used at Foundation Imaging in the early days on Babylon 5 and some of the later shows, Voyager. Texture that I used quite a lot. And I'm just going ahead and hit OK. I'm going to turn off weathering, first of all, because we want it to be basically little square boxes. I'm also going to adjust the color with the curves tool, just to make this a little bit more interesting. You could equally go in and manually add some interesting shapes, maybe fade them out slightly so some of that detail remains in there, which is easy enough to do with the rectangle tool. I am now going to go into the ray tracer, which is under the transforms filter. It's called Puppy Ray because we are a dog-themed paint program after all. And as you can see, I've already set up the scene. It's basically, as you can see in the thumbnail here, ready to render. But I'm going to go ahead and reproduce those steps for you. You can basically scroll around, move the camera around inside the scene, and rotate this camera. You can also move the light in the scene, as well as moving the object by itself, or the world by itself, and also scaling that object by itself. So as you can see, it's all very simple to create these simple textures and then render them as a 3D object using Howler and the new Puppy Ray filter. There are some built-in quality settings. I'm going to keep it on high quality. This affects the final render, not so much the thumbnail. We as a rule, we like to use full screen previews, but since this is brute force ray tracing, we decided to use a somewhat small thumbnail. Maybe in the future we can get it on the GPU and get that size up a bit, but for now we're doing pretty good to have that, considering it's fully ray traced, global illumination, and everything happening. I'll turn off global illumination and you'll see just basically what the 3D object looks like by itself. You can also alter the fog level. You can have this object repeat as many times as you want, 200-300 times if you wanted to, but I'm going to keep it down pretty low. That all costs rendering time. You can select different skies. I got a sunset sky, I might try that. I'll put that global illumination back on and also turn up the value a little bit for that. I might reduce the intensity of the light just slightly so it's not blown out. Alright, let me adjust the light slightly down so we can see the shadows a little more. As you can see in these, well, not so much in the thumbnail because we're using a very, just really one sample for that global illumination, but when you render this you'll have a lot more samples to work with. If you go into this More tab, there's quite a lot more you can change. You can change the number of global illumination samples to get a much higher quality render. The ray stepping is the number of increments, or the size of the increments that we ray march through the scene. The shadow quality, the anti-aliasing steps is all here. One thing we had to do with this scene was turn off interpolation and the pre-filter, because that would have smoothed out these blocky shapes we're using and made them look kind of warped and look like they were melting. So we turned the bilinear interpolation off, and also the pre-filter for this particular shape. But on a scene like a landscape or something, you wouldn't necessarily do that, but you have the option. Alright, I'm going to go to less. Go ahead and use the preset high quality setting there for rendering. Hit ray trace, And as you can see, we're beginning now to ray trace that scene. And it's thinking about it. And as you can see, the scene is not only rendering a single light source, but it is actually bouncing light. It's creating ambient occlusion. If you had specularity in here, the specular lights would bounce light onto the back sides of these buildings and that sort of thing. You can also have soft shadows to some degree, and really quite a lot for a simple ray tracer. In fact, you can alter the quality quite a bit. This is still a fairly low quality image compared to how high you can make it. You can really bump up the settings to anything you want. If you had an hour or two to spend on it, you could put the quality settings way up. But this is a good demonstration for this video anyways. And as you can see, we've rendered basically a cityscape just using the dread plating texture. And that is one of the big features in Howler 9.0.